Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about something that touches us all at some point in our lives: disrespect. Whether it's a subtle comment, a dismissive gesture, or a blatant insult, we all have experienced moments where we felt disrespected. The real question is, how do we handle it? How do we maintain our integrity and self-worth while standing up for ourselves? Here are 10 lessons I've learned on handling disrespect that I believe can help you too. The foundation of dealing with disrespect is understanding your own worth. When you recognize your own value, it becomes much harder for others to shake your confidence. Hold on to that truth even when others fail to see it. Disrespect often happens when boundaries are unclear or ignored. Learning to set healthy, firm boundaries is crucial. It's not about shutting others out, it's about teaching them how you expect to be treated. Disrespect can trigger strong emotions, and our first instinct is often to react, but responding calmly and thoughtfully is much more powerful. Take a breath and decide how you want to respond, rather than letting anger take the lead. Understanding someone's perspective doesn't mean you have to accept being mistreated. It's possible to hold compassion for what might have caused their behavior while still demanding respect for yourself. Sometimes the best way to handle disrespect is with silence. Not every comment or action deserves your energy or time. When you choose silence, you choose to conserve your power and focus on what truly matters. Seeking approval from those who disrespect you is a losing game. Instead, focus on respecting yourself. The right people will respect you for who you are, and those who don't aren't meant to be in your life. When possible, speak up. Let the person know that their words or actions are not okay. This isn't about confrontation, but rather about clarity. It gives the other person a chance to understand your boundaries. There will be times when the only solution is to walk away. Leaving doesn't make you weak, it means you're strong enough to protect your peace. You deserve to be surrounded by people who uplift and respect you. Being disrespected can hurt deeply, but don't be hard on yourself for how it affects you. Practice self-compassion. Remind yourself that it's normal to feel pain and focus on healing rather than dwelling on the hurt. You are a reflection of those you keep close. Surround yourself with people who respect you, who lift you up, and who remind you of your worth when you forget. The right support network is a key part of maintaining your self-respect. Knowing your worth is a powerful act of courage. It means embracing the belief that you are enough just as you are without needing anyone else's validation or approval. It's about understanding that your value isn't tied to how others see you, but to the truth that you carry inside yourself. When you deeply know your worth, you build a foundation that isn't easily shaken by others' opinions or behaviors. This doesn't mean that criticism won't sting or that disrespect won't hurt. It will, because we're human and connection matters to us. But knowing your worth means that you can feel those emotions, allow them to wash over you, and still come back to a place of strength. You recognize that others' actions don't define you, they reflect their own struggles and insecurities. It's a process that takes time, a practice that requires self-compassion. It's about being willing to look in the mirror and see your own imperfections without letting them diminish your self-respect. It's realizing that being imperfect is part of being human, and that your worth doesn't waver because of the opinions of others. When you know your worth, you stop seeking affirmation from those who may never see it. Instead, you become a protector of your own self-esteem, reminding yourself that you are worthy of respect even when it's not given to you. It's a quiet, resilient confidence that says, I know who I am, and that's enough. Boundaries are an act of self-respect. They aren't walls meant to shut people out. They're the clear lines that define what is acceptable and what is not in our relationships. It's about saying, this is where I end and you begin. Boundaries help us preserve our emotional energy and keep us grounded in who we are, even when others might push against them. They are the way we teach people how we expect to be treated, and they protect us from being overwhelmed or diminished by others' actions. Setting boundaries is often uncomfortable, especially if you're someone who is used to pleasing others or keeping the peace, but discomfort is part of the process, and it's a sign that you're moving toward greater authenticity. When we set boundaries, we're telling ourselves that our needs and feelings matter just as much as anyone else's. It's a declaration that we are deserving of respect and that we won't tolerate behavior that makes us feel small or disregarded. And it's not just about saying no to others, it's also about saying yes to ourselves. When we set boundaries, we create space for the things that truly matter to us. We make room for deeper connections, meaningful conversations, and the ability to show up fully in our own lives. Boundaries don't limit our capacity for connection, they enhance it by ensuring that we engage with others from a place of strength and authenticity, not resentment or obligation. In the end, boundaries are a way of honoring yourself. They allow you to interact with the world in a way that feels true to who you are, without sacrificing your own needs and values. They may not always be understood or welcomed by others, but they are a necessary act of self-love. And when you learn to set them with clarity and kindness, you find that the right people, those who truly value you, will respect them too. Responding instead of reacting is about choosing intentionality over impulse. It's about creating that crucial pause between what happens to us and how we decide to handle it. When someone disrespects us or says something hurtful, our instincts often push us toward immediate reactions, anger, defensiveness, or retreat. But reacting in the heat of the moment can lead us to say or do things that don't reflect who we really are. It's like handing over our power to the situation or to the person who triggered us. But responding? That's different. Responding means we take a breath, we slow down, and we give ourselves permission to process what we're feeling. It allows us to ground ourselves in the values that matter most to us: kindness, respect, honesty. It's the practice of checking in with ourselves. What am I feeling right now? Why is this bothering me? How do I want to show up in this moment? This doesn't mean we ignore or suppress our emotions. On the contrary, it means honoring them, acknowledging the hurt, the frustration, the anger without letting those emotions dictate our behavior. When we respond rather than react, we're better able to communicate our needs and boundaries clearly without adding more fuel to the fire. It takes practice, and it's not always easy. Sometimes we'll slip, and that's okay because we're human. And this is a lifelong journey. But with time, we learn that responding doesn't make us weaker, it makes us stronger. It's a way of taking back our power and refusing to let others dictate our peace. It allows us to approach difficult conversations with clarity instead of chaos, to navigate conflict with grace rather than aggression. In those moments when disrespect or hurt comes our way, responding is the practice of choosing how we want to move forward on our own terms, in alignment with our own values. It's a reminder that while we can't always control what others do or say, we do have control over how we show up in response. And that's a powerful kind of freedom. Empathy is about understanding where someone is coming from, seeing the world through their eyes, even when it's difficult. It's about recognizing that everyone has their own struggles, pain, and reasons for behaving the way they do. But here's the key: empathy doesn't mean we accept or excuse behavior that hurts us. It's possible to hold space for someone's story while still standing firm in our own boundaries. When we're empathetic, we can recognize that a person's outburst might come from a place of deep insecurity, or that a harsh word might be rooted in their own pain. But understanding why someone acts a certain way doesn't mean we have to tolerate it. We can still say, I get it, but this is not okay with me. Empathy allows us to see the humanity in others, but it doesn't require us to disregard our own needs, values, or limits in the process. It's a delicate balance, holding compassion for another while also holding them accountable for their actions. It means we don't rush to justify harmful behavior just because we understand the root of it. Instead, we can use empathy to approach difficult situations with a fuller perspective, but also with clarity about what is and isn't acceptable to us. This approach requires courage. It's challenging to be both kind and firm, to recognize the hurt that might drive someone's disrespect without allowing it to become a justification for their actions. But this is how we stay true to ourselves. It's about saying, I can see your pain, but I won't let it hurt me. It's an act of self-respect to extend empathy while also protecting your own well-being. Empathy is powerful because it builds connection and fosters understanding, but it doesn't mean losing sight of what you deserve. You can be kind without being a doormat, compassionate without being a pushover. Empathy is a tool for deeper connection, not a free pass for others to treat us poorly. And when we use it wisely, we honor both others and ourselves, creating a space where we can meet others with compassion without losing our own integrity in the process. Silence can be a powerful response, a way of reclaiming our power when words would only add noise to a situation. It's not about shutting down or retreating, it's about choosing not to engage in battles that aren't worth fighting. Silence allows us to take a step back, to gather our thoughts, and to process what's happening without being swept up in the emotions of the moment. It's about knowing that not every provocation deserves our energy, and not every criticism needs a rebuttal. When faced with disrespect or negativity, silence can serve as a form of self-protection. It's a way of saying, I don't have to let this get to me. Or I won't let this drag me down to a place I don't want to go. It's choosing to hold onto our inner calm instead of being pulled into a conflict that might escalate or leave us feeling worse. It's the understanding that sometimes no response is the most dignified response. Silence can also be a tool for reflection. It creates space for us to check in with ourselves and ask, what do I really feel? What do I want to do next? It gives us the chance to gain clarity about what's really important and to decide if, when, and how we want to respond. By not rushing to fill the space with words, we allow ourselves the opportunity to see the situation more clearly and to decide what serves us best. But silence isn't about avoiding hard conversations forever. It's about timing and intention. Sometimes we need that pause to find the right words or to decide if the person we're engaging with is ready to hear them. Silence can signal strength, a refusal to be baited into a reaction. It can also communicate that we value our peace more than proving a point. It's a way of showing that we are in control of ourselves, even when things around us feel out of control. And in those moments when we do finally speak, our words carry more weight because they come from a place of intention, not impulse. Silence doesn't mean surrender, it means holding your ground, conserving your energy, and choosing your battles wisely. It's a quiet way of maintaining your dignity, reminding yourself that your worth isn't tied to every comment or challenge thrown your way. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can say is nothing at all, and in that quiet we find our strength. Choosing self-respect over seeking approval is about recognizing that our worth isn't tied to what others think of us. It's the decision to stand firmly in our own values and beliefs, even when it means risking disapproval or misunderstanding. It's a shift from looking outward for validation to looking inward for a sense of worthiness and acceptance. When we choose self-respect, we're saying that our sense of self isn't up for negotiation. Seeking approval is a natural human tendency. After all, we're wired for connection. We want to belong, to be liked, and to feel understood. But when we prioritize the approval of others over our own sense of self, we end up bending, changing, and shrinking parts of ourselves to fit into spaces where we don't truly belong. We lose touch with what matters most to us and start to shape our lives around others' expectations. This can leave us feeling unfulfilled, disconnected, and even resentful because we're not being true to who we are. Choosing self-respect means being willing to disappoint people sometimes. It means accepting that not everyone will agree with our decisions, our boundaries, or our truth, and that's okay. It's understanding that trying to be everything to everyone comes at the cost of being nothing to ourselves. When we embrace self-respect, we learn to trust our own voice, even when it feels shaky or uncertain. We learn to say no when it's right for us, even if it means letting someone down. We start to realize that our worth doesn't increase or decrease based on how others perceive us. This doesn't mean we stop caring about others or become indifferent to their feelings. It's about recognizing the difference between caring for people and needing their approval to feel good about ourselves. It's choosing to live in alignment with our own values even when it feels uncomfortable or lonely. It's understanding that true belonging can only happen when we show up authentically, when we're willing to be ourselves, without the mask of seeking constant validation. In choosing self-respect, we find a deeper sense of peace, because we're no longer constantly chasing after approval that may or may not come. We start to attract the right people, the ones who appreciate us for who we really are, not for who we try to be. And while the road to self-respect can be challenging, it leads to a place where we feel grounded, whole, and truly free. It's a quiet confidence that says, I know who I am and I'm okay with that, whether or not you are. It's a choice that honors our own hearts, reminding us that the most important approval we need is our own. Addressing disrespect when you can is an act of courage. It's about standing up for yourself and communicating your needs even when it feels uncomfortable. When someone crosses a line or treats you unfairly, the easiest response might be to stay silent, to let it slide, or to convince yourself that it's not worth the trouble. But sometimes silence can feel like a betrayal of your own boundaries. Speaking up, on the other hand, can be a way of affirming your worth. Addressing a difficult situation isn't about confrontation for the sake of being right, it's about clarity. It's about saying, this is how I want to be treated, and offering the other person an opportunity to understand how their actions affected you. It's not always easy. Our hearts might race and our voices might tremble, but addressing it head on gives us the chance to express ourselves honestly. It allows us to define what is and isn't acceptable in our relationships instead of letting those lines be blurred by silence. It's important to choose the right time and place. Addressing it when you can means being mindful of your own emotional state and the context you're in. If you're too angry or hurt to speak calmly, it might be better to take a breath and wait until you've had time to process. But once you're ready, expressing your feelings can create the space for a more authentic connection. It gives the other person a chance to hear your perspective, to understand the impact of their words or actions, and if they're willing to change. This doesn't guarantee that the other person will respond well. Sometimes they might become defensive, dismissive, or even turn the blame back on you. And that's okay, because addressing it isn't about controlling their reaction, it's about honoring your truth. It's about saying what needs to be said for your own peace of mind, knowing that you've been true to yourself. It can feel vulnerable to put ourselves out there like this, to risk rejection or conflict. But vulnerability is where real connection happens. By addressing issues instead of letting them fester, we open the door to honesty, to the possibility of understanding, and even to repair. And even if the conversation doesn't go as you hoped, you'll know that you stood up for yourself, that you gave voice to your needs instead of burying them. Addressing it when you can is a way of reclaiming your story, of making sure that you're an active participant in your own life rather than a silent observer. It's a way of choosing integrity over comfort. And it's a reminder to yourself that your feelings matter. In the end, it's not about the outcome, it's about the act of showing up for yourself. Walking away when necessary is an act of self-preservation, a way of saying, I will not stay where I am not valued. It's not about giving up or backing down. It's about choosing to protect your own peace when staying means sacrificing your well-being. It takes real strength to recognize when a situation, a relationship, or an environment is no longer serving you, and even more to decide that you deserve better. There's often a narrative that staying through the struggle is the brave choice, that enduring mistreatment or trying to fix a situation means we're strong. But there's a different kind of courage in knowing when to walk away. It means acknowledging that despite your efforts, despite your best intentions, the situation isn't going to change in a way that honors your needs. It's choosing to let go of the idea that if you just try harder, things will improve, and instead realizing that you have the right to remove yourself from places that hurt you. Walking away can feel like failure, especially if we're invested in the idea of being the person who sticks it out, who can handle anything. But walking away is a powerful reminder that you don't have to prove your strength by staying somewhere that drains you. You don't have to diminish yourself to make space for someone else's disrespect or to fit into a situation that doesn't align with your values. There is power in choosing yourself and saying, this is not how my story ends. It can be heartbreaking to walk away, particularly when it involves people you care about or dreams you've held for a long time. There's a grieving process, a period of wondering if you made the right decision, if maybe you should have stayed a little longer. But with time, you come to realize that walking away isn't about abandoning hope, it's about making room for hope to grow somewhere else. It's about opening up space in your life for new opportunities, new connections, and a version of yourself that doesn't have to fight so hard to be respected. Walking away when necessary also teaches others how to treat you. It sends a clear message you value yourself too much to stay in a place where your worth is ignored. It may not always change their behavior, but it changes the way you see yourself. It's a declaration that you deserve relationships and environments where your voice matters and where you don't have to diminish yourself to feel accepted. It's not easy and it's not without pain, but there's a deep sense of freedom that comes from choosing to walk away from what doesn't serve you. It's a reminder that you're not trapped, that you have choices, and that your own well-being is worth the temporary discomfort of letting go. In choosing to walk away, you honor your own boundaries and create a life where you don't have to question whether you're worthy of respect you already know that you are. Practicing self-compassion is a radical act of kindness toward ourselves, especially in moments when we feel vulnerable, hurt, or inadequate. It's about treating ourselves with the same warmth and understanding we would offer a dear friend. In a world that often tells us to be tougher, to push through our pain, self-compassion invites us to pause and acknowledge our struggles without judgment. When we face disrespect or challenges, our inner critic can become the loudest voice in the room, telling us we're not enough, that we should have handled things better, or that we're somehow to blame for the hurt we experience. But practicing self-compassion means recognizing that imperfection is part of the human experience. It's about allowing ourselves to be flawed and understanding that everyone struggles, even when it might look like they have it all together. Self-compassion begins with awareness. It's about noticing when we're being hard on ourselves and gently shifting that narrative. Instead of berating ourselves for our mistakes or the way we were treated, we can ask, what would I say to a friend in this situation? This simple shift can transform our inner dialogue from one of criticism to one of support. It's the acknowledgement that we're doing the best we can, and that's enough. It's important to remember that self-compassion doesn't mean letting ourselves off the hook for our actions. It's about understanding our motivations and learning from our experiences. When we approach ourselves with kindness, we create the space to reflect and grow without the weight of shame holding us back. This nurturing attitude allows us to move forward with a clearer mind and a lighter heart. Embracing self-compassion also means recognizing that our feelings are valid no matter what others might say. It's acknowledging our hurt, frustration, or disappointment without diminishing those emotions. It's okay to feel upset when we're disrespected. Those feelings deserve to be heard. By practicing self-compassion, we give ourselves permission to feel deeply, to grieve what was lost, and to heal in our own time. Moreover, self-compassion fosters resilience. When we treat ourselves with care and understanding, we build a foundation that helps us bounce back from setbacks. We learn that it's not the challenges we face that define us, but how we respond to them. By cultivating a compassionate relationship with ourselves, we develop the tools to navigate life's ups and downs with grace and strength. Ultimately, practicing self-compassion is about cultivating a loving relationship with ourselves. It's the recognition that we are worthy of care, especially when we're at our most vulnerable. In choosing to be gentle with ourselves, we create a powerful ripple effect, allowing us to extend that same kindness to others. We become more empathetic and open-hearted, not just toward ourselves, but also toward those around us. And in that space of self-acceptance, we find the courage to rise above disrespect, to set boundaries, and to embrace our inherent worth.